If you're looking for some straight-up marketing advice that's super chilled and also a bit of a laugh, then grab yourself a drink and get ready for Marketing and Margaritas, a podcast that makes marketing entertaining. Brought to you by Rebel Nation, direct from regional Queensland.
Hi, and welcome to Marketing Margaritas. I am joined today by Steve Boxall from the Resources Centre of Excellence, which is currently located here in Mackay, Queensland. So Steve is the GM, CEO? CEO. I'm terrible at remembering titles, man. I mean, they're very important. We all need them, but just never on the top of my tongue. So Stephen's joining me today so we can talk about how to market something before anyone really understands what you're talking about. So basically, Steve is a man of many talents, many different career highlights and things that he's done over the years. And we've worked closely with him to get RCO's marketing up and running when it was first going. And the RCOE, is this amazing, well, it's not just a facility, and I don't want to take away too much from what you're going to say, obviously, but the whole concept and what it was trying to bring about, back in when it first started off was so nebulous in a way. And we were, putting together a brand and a website and then bringing people in and, educating stakeholders on what it meant and why get involved and stuff. And it's just been this massive journey that at the time, planning it all out and stuff was like, I hope this all comes together and people get it. And not only have they gotten it, but it has just flourished. And I honestly think, Stephen, that so much of that really is a credit to you. I think you've been an absolute champion behind what they've done and just the pure man hours and effort that you've put in personally. I remember when you were still serving people tea and coffee when they arrived and stuff yourself. You've been on the ground doing all this legwork, and it's been such an amazing journey to be a part of. What your vision and the board's vision was for RCOE, and seeing that realized so much sooner and stuff. It's been really exciting. So just want to get from you, I do want to know a little bit more about you too, but starting off, just to clear up for everyone, what is the Resources Centre of Excellence?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question, and everywhere I go, people still ask, who we are, what are we doing, but it's really great 3 years on the journey. So many
Is it
more
only
people.
3 years?
It's only 3 years.
Oh
so
my
many
God,
more people know who we are and what we're trying to do, but most importantly, just how progressive our whole region is. And you mentioned that the early work that was done, and I like to say that I'm just a lucky person who has come along and be able to activate a really amazing strategic plan that my board, who were the inaugural board, who are still my board, put in place. And I had great pride in carrying that document, which your company designed, under my arm for the first couple of years. And every meeting I went to, I talked through what the strategy was. I talked about what we were set up to achieve. And, I suppose it is a bit of a mystery about, what's the RCOE doing, but it's actually quite simple. What we were set up to do was to sit between industry, research and government, and to really support and fast track initiatives in our traditional resources sector, so particularly in the metallurgical coal sector. So solving complex industry problems, whether that's to advance safety, skill shortages, innovation, automation. We were about bringing people together and being a neutral territory where people could be comfortable across levels of government, across different types of companies, where they could come and work at the RCOE. So really connecting the brightest minds, which was probably one of your catchphrases that you put in that inaugural strategic plan. So, that's what we've been doing. It has been 3 years of literally blood, sweat and tears that, we started, and very much we had a build it and they will come philosophy. When I first started, we didn't have any customers, we didn't have any partners, we didn't have too many users. We certainly had some great supporters, and without the Queensland State Government, Mackay Regional Council and particularly BHP, we wouldn't have got off the ground. So, that was a real kickstart for us. But I suppose then as we started to activate the dream of what we wanted to achieve, things really started to snowball. And, I suppose I've been lucky to work across a few different sectors in my career. So I've worked in media, worked in retail, worked in local government. But first and foremost, I've always been focused on the customer and, trying to anyone we're dealing with, make sure that we leave a lasting, memorable experience.
And a positive experience too. I think that's been something that has just been overwhelming from RCOE, is that, you know, I've heard of people doing tours and delegations through there, or like they've had people visiting from other areas and they've taken to RCOE as part of the get to know what we have here sort of thing. And it's over and over again, it's just like people are blown away.
Yeah, yeah. And we try, you know, like
and that doesn't just come from bricks and mortar.
No,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely not. It's, you know, it's getting the story right and it's being genuine about what you're doing. So, you know, last year our stats were, I think we had around 18,000 people come through, connected with 500 different companies, did
That's
tours
amazing,
for 250
Steve.
people. And, you know, I must say, like, and even on Friday just gone, we hosted a group which was a local NDIS participants came out and got to experience the underground and sit in equipment and so on. And I still get goosebumps to this day after 3 years, seeing the impact that it has on all sorts of people across our community being able to come and experience what we've got there. So, you know, I think it's just, you know, the planets are in alignment with, you know, the moment we are in time, the people we've got involved, the support that we've had, and it's just turned out right.
And I know, like, right at the start, there obviously were like other organisations and consultants and the board and all that sort of stuff, etc., that were absolutely pivotal in all of their contributions and their ongoing support and contribution. But I guess if I take it back to, like, I remember when you first came on board and you were just like, you know, bullet a gate, man. You were just like bursting with ideas and you just wanted it to work and you were so passionate about it. And then it's like 3 years later, I feel like you still have that same drive and passion around it. It has not dulled. And I guess, you know, I just wanted to dial into that a little bit. Like, your background, like, obviously I've known you on and off years sort of thing through business things or whatever. But I guess, you know, when it comes to your career, what are some of those key moments that kind of have led you to this point? Like, it's a fairly unique what you do. Like, are there any particular standout moments in your career where you're like, well, it was working at, you know, in travel that helped me understand this, or working in, the, you know, like what do you think kind of brought you here?
There's a couple of key sort of guiding principles that I've seen over the years that have really worked. You know, and I remember back to my media days, and, you know, like, it was a tough gig working in the media in Mackay, and especially before social media and so on, when you had television and newspaper and radio.
Were you mainly TD?
So I started in newspaper. So I started at the Daily Mercury. Like, so many people in Mackay that are
I think I'm the only marketing and media person here who hasn't worked at the Mercury.
But it was about, like, to get respect, you had to do what you were gonna, whatever you said you were gonna do, you had to follow through and do it, and that's how you got respect. And that, you know, really taught me in those early years of trying to sell advertising in the local newspaper that, you know, you had to be really good at building relationships. You had to be really good at following through and saying what,
delivering
and doing
that
what
promise.
you do. You know, and that, you know, that probably taught me a lot. Then I sort of, you know, realised when I was in travel that, you know, that was very much about building a community and, you know, like trying to bring people together to share experiences and so on from a customer perspective.
So is that where a lot of your customer experience kind of
because it's a pure retail environment and it's a highly competitive environment. Not only do you have, you know, bricks and mortar competitors, you've got online, you've got, you know, people doing it themselves. So you really had to hone your skills at, you know, sales and looking after people, and again, following through and doing everything you said you were going to do. So, you know, that's probably been my guiding principles. But, you know, as we look at where things are at now, you know, everyone's so focused on stakeholder engagement and communication, and I kind of think to myself, well, that's been my whole career. You know, it doesn't matter what industry I've been in, and, you know, even when I was a CEO in local government, the two things that I had to have was communication with my workforce, communication with the community, communication with my council, but also stakeholder engagement with key partners across the
Bring them along that
community.
journey
So,
too.
you know, I think that, you know, there's so much emphasis now on stakeholders and stakeholder engagement, which is great, because I think that's really where the world needs to be, is that everyone needs to be engaged. So, you know, for
It's
me...
just partnering up, man. It's just finding those like-minded people and partnering up to do cool things together.
Exactly. So, you know, that's probably been my, you know, guiding principles. And I honestly, I do find it easy to kind of bring people together to work on making sure that we're all getting the same sort of outcomes or impacts from whatever our collaboration is. So, yeah, that's probably what I've learned across my career. I don't think it's rocket science. Like, I think it's just every day. And, you know, it's great that we're doing this here in East Mackay or South Mackay. I went to school at Vic Park, just down the road, and then to Mackay State High School. And, you know, I'm very proud of my upbringing and my roots and my background. And, you know, so many of the things that I learned at school around relationships and communication, I'm still using today.
I think, though, that's the thing, though, too. Like, obviously, these are like skills and traits that you probably always have that have just been honed and emphasized and stuff over time. And now it's just come together into pretty much exactly what RCOE needed, I think, is that the ability to communicate and engage with people so that they could understand something that was completely new and different and explain it in a way that actually made them want to get involved. Because, you know, it's like, yes, you get your early adopters, etc., like that, but the kind of people that you're engaging with, like, no offense to government, all that kind of thing, but that early adopter is not generally that person sort of thing. So
no.
The fact that you've gotten so much support and people using it's not just using the facility, it's that collaboration and what comes out of it as well.
Yeah.
The volume of that's happened so quickly, like, you're just so far ahead of where we were hoping it would be, sort of thing. It's just so exciting to watch, man.
Oh, look, and, you know, I do always like to say that I'm just some lucky person who gets to, you know, be in the media or whatever. Like, it is a culmination of so many people pulling together and going in the right direction. And, you know, I suppose the other thing is I'm still learning all the time. Like, we're evolving and doing things differently. And, you know, from those early days of, you know, the strategic plan that my board did, like, they got so much right. We've just refreshed that plan and we've kept so much of it the same. And we've just overlapped some new themes around, you know, new industries like critical minerals and decarbonisation and circular economy. But, you know, absolutely at the core of our business is the metallurgical coal business that's driven this community and this region for so long. So, you know, I've just been lucky that we've had so many people, I suppose, focused on trying to do the best that we can as a region, and then that's flowed on to support that the RCOE's received. And just to pick up on that, I said about learning, like, there's not a day or a week where I don't learn something. And last week...
Well, that keeps you engaged then too, doesn't it?
Well, it does.
Because it's important that you're also interested in this.
Yeah, and so I was lucky to host the CEO of Anglo-American Australia, because we've got a partnership with them and we're launching the partnership. And I was so proud of all the physical things we'd done, so signage on the building and those sorts of things. And when the CEO arrived and I showed him, you know, some of the signage, and you know, one of their values is changing people's lives, and we've got that as a logo on the wall. And I said to him, well, you know, what do you think of the logo? He said, well, I don't think much of it. He said, I want to see impact, not logos, which I thought was a really good thing to
We're not just
learn.
about putting our name on things, we're actually about walking the talk.
Yeah, and that kind of resonated with me, because you know, sometimes we get a bit blurred about, you know, new things, shiny things, whatever. But if we bring it back to what impact are we actually delivering, I think that's a really good assessment of whether we're doing well or not. So for me, I learned from someone at that level that I really need to be constantly focused on what impacts are we producing for our partners.
What's the core output? What's the actual purpose?
Yeah.
Okay, so when RCO was a totally new concept, so I want you to dial back into all those years ago. How did you go about getting that buy-in from locals and stakeholders that this was not only something that was needed, but was going to be super useful for our, not just our resources sector, but also our community?
Oh, look, I think it just comes down to talking. You know, I met with so many people, went through the strategic plan, looked for opportunities of how we could work together. You know, I was lucky that we had a blank canvas, so we could do anything and anything really.
It's great to see that as an opportunity rather than a hindrance too, because you're kind of like, you're selling people on a blank canvas, man. Like, that's not easy.
Well, that's right. It was the ultimate of thinking, okay, how do we maximise not just revenue, because we need to make money to keep the lights on
Still
and
business.
pay the overheads, but how do we actually get those impacts that everyone's chasing? So, you know, I think it just come down to, there was some, you know, I had lots of discussions with lots of people, and then you actually land on some partnerships with certain companies and people that you know you're just aligned with, and it naturally starts to happen and flow. So
builds from there.
Yeah, so, you know, we did have the early adopters, and we had people that have been absolute supporters from day one, and they're still supporters now. We've got an ever-growing group of users, supporters, people we're running projects for, but it all has to come back to fit with our intent of what we're doing. And you know, just reflecting on those early years, and I remember you used to come out and see me, and we used to talk about, you know, what marketing we do to try and generate business and activity. And you know, we went through a very short period at the start where we started more just grabbing anything and everything because we just needed activity.
Which a lot of new business does. You've kind of got to accept everything at the start, but then as soon as you sort of start honing in and just focusing on what actually aligns with you, things kind of step up a lot faster.
Yeah, and it was a really interesting point to know when, like, at one stage we were in every lane, and then we come back to just 3 or 4 lanes, then we come back to 2 lanes, and now we're in a distinctive lane of our own. So, you know, I suppose that was a learning for me that, you know, that activity, you know, activity brings activity and brings people and so on, and that really kicked us off. So, you know, while we might have started off doing some different and varied things, it's actually got us to where we needed to be, which was, you know, I think a fast track to where we are now.
And I think that's the thing though too, if you didn't do those things, if you hadn't tried out those different ideas and avenues, you probably wouldn't have cottoned on to that, you know what I mean? Like, you have to go through that process to get to that actual, like that bit where you're like, oh yes, this is it. This is what we're meant to be doing.
Yeah, and that's really, you know, I think as a region, you know, we're a forward-thinking region. We've, you know, everyone in this region is absolutely ahead of the game, I think. You know, that's just what's been bred into us. And, you know, I know, you know, Kylie from GW3 says it really well. Like, our biggest positive is that we just get on and make things happen, and our biggest negative is that we get on and make things happen.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, like I always think about that, and I think that's why we're you know where we are today. But it's also within government at all levels. I think our region's very much got that respect, that they know that we're not whingers, they know that we're going to find solutions. And you know, I love it when I have DGs and people like that come and they just go, my God, I can't believe how good this is. And you know, I get comments like, you know, the RCOE and Paget is like the equivalent of what the Silicon Valley is to the tech industry in the US. That's what Paget is to the met sector and the resources sector when they come and see what's going on. So, you know, it's really rewarding when you see that it's a whole of region approach that we've got to success, future industries, innovation. It's everyone's on that.
And it just keeps coming, man. You know what I mean? Like, some of the things that I get to read and proof and help put together and stuff in our role, because we obviously work with you guys, but also a number of government agencies and then independent bodies like GW3 and stuff. And it bowls me over. Like, just the things that are coming through and opportunities and ideas. And it's sort of, it's just really exciting. You know, you think of like Mackay, like, yes, it's a regional centre or whatever, but dude, it's banging. Like, there is shit happening.
It's, you know, between, you know, you think about the traditional industries, we've got the industries that are now starting to happen around aquaculture, aerospace, biomanufacturing, renewables, you know, and that's not even starting to scratch the surface on mine site rehabilitation and what, you know, we may be able to turn mines that have reached end of life into, whether that be, tourist attractions
that
or
next
data
phase
centres
looks like
or
and stuff too.
whatever it is. So I am very bullish about this region in terms of where we're going to go to, and that we're absolutely set up for the future. Just in the last month, I've been in Brisbane, Canberra, about to go to Sydney, and again, our region is just held in such high regard.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Woohoo. So bringing it back to our audience, I wanted to have a look at what you think, what were some of the key points of what has made RCOE successful to date from a marketing and business perspective. So if there's any kind of marketing and business advice that you can pass on that you have learned, I mean, obviously through your career, but especially this fast track success that RCOE has been experiencing.
One of the things that, from a marketing perspective, that I'm happy to talk about, that I was skeptical about. Like, I've never been a huge social media type person and thinking what impact it would have. But someone said to me early on that I had to get into LinkedIn. LinkedIn was, so I kind of reluctantly got a LinkedIn account and updated my details and so on, and then started to do a couple of posts. And in the early years, I dictate to you what to say.
Because I remember at the start, you were like, "Oh, you guys can just do it," and it's like it'll never be as good as you actually doing it yourself, man.
And then I got disciplined around making sure that I took photos so that I had the right content, and then actually sitting down and trying to write it myself, because you were spot on. I was trying to dictate it to you, and then it'd get lost in translation. So it's easier for me just to do it myself.
And when you do that, Steve, your LinkedIn stuff is it's thought-provoking, it's considerate. Like you can read your passion and around this sort of thing. It's so genuine. It's just, even if you're not in Mets, it's so hard not to connect with what you write about.
Yeah, so that's, that would be my number one tip, is like LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. Like I've met so many, director generals in state government, CEOs of major companies, solely because of LinkedIn. That they've followed me on LinkedIn, they've reached out, or I've been able to reach out to them.
That's a big credit to you, man.
Or they've come to the RCOE and, like the head of BHP in Australia would say, "Oh, well, I know a lot about what you're doing because I watch you on LinkedIn."
Been following you, yeah.
So, I think in terms of advice, that's something that it doesn't cost a lot. It just costs a bit of your time and discipline, and just
it's available to anyone. Anyone can be using it.
You get the right photos, and I suppose the thing that I learned was you just have to test and try different things. So 100%. I've done things where I've done a post and I get one like, and then I've done other things where I get like 800 likes and 25,000 impressions, and
you're trying to figure out, is like, okay, what was the secret sauce from that one?
Yeah. So, that would be my biggest tip, is that you don't have to spend a lot of money to get some, real bang for marketing and so on.
You just have to put some thought and care into what you're doing.
Yeah. And probably the other thing is just the, traditional media has obviously changed in terms of, in the old days you could make a TV ad, or you could put an ad in the newspaper or whatever. And, I suppose we've proven that, whether it's via social media, or whether it's by making sure that our website's up to date, or whether it's signage on our building, or, we've done a whole range of other things that are probably totally different to what I would have done 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and 20 years ago. So
things evolve. Things
are evolving, and I think, like I said with LinkedIn, I think you've got to keep on testing and trying things. And I think absolutely, the word of mouth marketing, and those 250 tour groups that we host a year that are everyone from preschool kids to, the Prime Minister and CEOs of mining companies, they all go away and spread the word as well. So,
but that's because you're delivering the experience when they're there as well. You're generating that word of mouth by actually creating a customer experience that people want to talk about.
Yeah. So I think that's, the marketing stuff, I don't think there's anything real new that we're doing. I think we're just being consistent, and we're just trying to tell a genuine story. From a business perspective, like I've learned so much over the last couple of years. Kind of...
Because, dude, you've, ran businesses and everything yourself. You ran a council. It's like you don't have a shit ton of business experience already.
And I think that's that thing that you got to keep on learning and evolving, and everything changes.
There's
so
always
quickly.
learning opportunities.
And I always say about, they say now that kids are going to have whatever it is, 8 or 10 careers, and I think I was just an early adopter of that. I've already had 5
You're an
or
early
6,
case study of it.
but it shows you that you can be an expert one day, next day you can know nothing, but within 6 to 12 months you can almost be an expert again. So,
well, you're drawing on what you've learnt and what you uniquely bring to the table too, but staying open to what you can learn and pick up while you're there as well.
Yeah, and that's that. And always remember, one of the things I learned at uni in organisational behaviour, we read a book by Alvin Toffler. And he spoke about, the future of education is being able to unlearn and relearn. And I've always remembered that because I kind of thought, across my career, that's what I've had to do. I've kind of had to be a subject matter expert one day, but then move to a new industry the next day and have to
have that open mind of a student
and relearn again. And, I think that's been, that's probably been I've come with open eyes, open ears, and not tried to pretend I know everything. I knew nothing about the resources sector, so I've had to learn, a lot more about the resources sector. I'm still not I wouldn't say I'm a subject matter expert at all, but I'm on the journey of learning more. So I think that lifelong learning philosophy is really important in business, and surrounding yourself with the right people. That's obviously, and I've been very lucky with my team.
You've got a great team.
I've been able to build from scratch. Majority of them I've worked with or worked alongside across my sort of 20 or 30 year career in different industries. So we know each other. We know how we all work.
Boxy wants me to come on board. I already know what to expect.
And would we be best friends outside of work? Probably not, because we're all totally different people. But do we gel as a team and work together and respect each other? And and absolutely we do. So I think that building the team and being able to build it incrementally from me as one person to me and Tracy being 2, to the point where we're a team of 5 now. So, and then that brings its challenges as well, because,
everything's got pros and cons, man.
Being able to make decisions on the fly and, we talk just whenever we want to. Obviously now we have to have more formalised meetings.
Structures and procedures and all the rest of it.
So that's probably my business, my business learnings are, it is refreshing when you come into something new. But you have to be absolutely eyes wide open to, make sure that you're capturing opportunities and you're not doing what you've always done to, get what you've always
staying
got.
ahead of the game, man.
Yeah.
And I think, just taking it back to like saying about that customer, we're talking about word of mouth marketing and those customer experience, especially with those tours, etc. And like you said, when you just do things yourself, you're just like, I will deliver on what I say I'm going to do and follow through. And so that exemplary customer service was already such a value of yours that you've brought to RCOE. But now you have a team and it's not just you doing everything, etc. How do you, I think of customer experience as being a big part of RCOE.
Yep.
How do you bake that into your team? Because that's not a procedure.
No. And it's like we've really tried to create it as the culture. And I can now, it makes me so proud when, I'm not here all the time, I'm travelling and, around the place. So, quite often when I'm here, I'll just sit and work in the foyer because I don't have an office. And I just love watching and hearing, what my team are saying. And you can see that culture of customer excellence is just embedded in everything we do. And, little things like, people will walk out of the underground with dusty boots through the kitchen. Within a matter of seconds, the broom will be out.
And I've seen the brooms there nice and handy so that it gets done.
It's all of those little things that, are the 1%ers that a lot of people would just turn their, blind eye to. But, what we love is that people still walk into our building 3 years after we opened and say, oh my God, it's brand new. How lovely is this? So, that's what we try and do, is just make sure that everything's spot on, and we do provide that great customer service.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of things to love here, but when it comes to RCOE's role and its purpose, you know, like what you and your team are doing for the region, but also just like the people in the community, what's your favourite part of it all? Like, what's the thing that whenever you think about it makes you smile and makes you feel proud?
Look, I mentioned earlier about, the tour groups that come through, and, we, from day one, we've said, if anyone wants to come and have a look, we will do our utmost to get them in there and to show them around.
You guys are very flexible about that, which is very cool.
But the reason we do it is, there's a benefit for us because we'll show them a great experience and then they'll go and tell people about it. But it's also just giving people the opportunity to have a look at that environment. And there's so many dads that want to bring their kids in to show them the environment that they work in. Or, I mentioned the NDIS participants who come the other day who would never be able to go near any big underground mining equipment on a real site, and just to see the smiles on their faces. So, and then Rotary groups and people like that, it's just great to connect and give people more of a intricate knowledge of the industry in particular that's fueling not just our region's economy, because, people are very quick to say, the resources sector's contributed $78 billion or whatever, but they don't realise that the reason people get paid what they get paid in the resources sector is because it's a dangerous job.
The conditions are so true, and the work that they do.
It's good to be able to, put all of that narrative together so that people can have a little bit more understanding.
Better understanding, yeah.
And then, of course, we spend a lot of time talking about, everyone, particularly the media, talks about coal as destroying the world. So we spend a lot of time just talking to people about the difference between thermal coal and metallurgical coal. The cleaner, greener future that we all want can't happen without more mining and can't happen without more metallurgical coal for steel, for wind farms and electric vehicles and, a whole range of...
but isn't it all better if we all pull together anyway towards one vision rather than being at each other?
Exactly. So, I think that just being able to, change people's opinion or convince people one by one, I think that's really rewarding. That's, to me, that's what we're here for.
And like for me personally, like I'm a Mackay local. I grew up here and have known like people working over the hill and all that type of stuff, but I never worked in the mines myself or anything like that. And so, from the very first time I went into the underground simulator, for example, through to the last time I went through it, how much you guys are putting in there and the big pipes and like what the crib room, the actual size of it is and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, I think of all of these people I've known over the years that have worked in those environments, and I've visited a couple of mine sites now, but it's not like I can go underground in them. It's wonderful to experience something that it's a part of my community story.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I suppose as we grow and develop, and, that's why we've now got our second stage about to get underway, and then a third stage out in Moranbah.
Good, that was my next question. What are we allowed to talk about that's coming up?
Yeah, excellent. So, again, I have to credit, the RCOE board that, a couple of years ago they landed on opportunities around particularly mineral processing and critical minerals and reprocessing mine site tailings and also reprocessing coal tailings. And there was an opportunity around building a pilot processing plant really to start sampling some of the opportunities, developing technology and working with universities. So our second stage is actually a pilot mineral processing plant. That is just one of the components of what's called the Future Industry Hub. We're building it in partnership with the University of Queensland Sustainable Minerals Institute, and we hope to support not just the metallurgical coal sector, but also this emerging critical mineral sector that Queensland has. So it will be up and running within the next 12 months. It's about a $12 million investment, and it'll be built alongside the existing RCOE. So
and it's got some really cool stuff going into it, from the concept things and stuff that I've seen. It's,
So
it's like RCOE. I think it's a well thought out facility.
So what we've done is we've kind of taken all our learnings and knowledge from stage one and now gone, okay, we've got a chance now to develop stage 2, what would have we done differently? So, we'll have the opportunity to house in that facility some other future and emerging industries that our region's on the cusp of securing. So, that'll give people a real fast entry into our region. So whereas, in the past it's hard to acquire industrial land, it's, it takes time to build buildings and so on.
But it shows a tangible hub for that place, for that sort of thing to take place as well.
So we hope to fast track and really be a bit of an incubator, but for new industry. So that's stage 2. And then we've also been working on a vision with Isaac Regional Council, about a third stage out there.
And this was when I wasn't sure if we were allowed to talk about or not. So that's why I kind of left the question very open-ended.
Yeah, so we're well down the planning process. So, and again, I think when I started on the 6th of October, 2020.
Oh God, I still remember the day. Well done.
Well, yeah. And on my second day of work, I went to Moranbah and met with Mayor Ann Baker and the CEO at the time. And Mayor Baker said to me, "Stephen, I don't know what it is that you're totally going to be doing at the RCOE, but I know that our region wants to be part of it." So we've been on like a 3-year journey with Isaac around what does it look like if we do something out there, and what do we actually do out there that supports the traditional industries but also starts to set those regions up for the future. The state government's now on board and provided up to $38 million funding in the budget this year to deliver the project. It's a couple of years away because there's trunk infrastructure planning and engagement that has to happen to get it right.
All the logistics and stuff behind something getting up.
Yeah, but we know that there'll be a strong education presence, there'll be a strong support of skills and training in the traditional sector, and we also know that we'll attract some new industries out there. So, it's a watch and wait space to see what's going to happen, but we know from what we've done so far and where we're heading, if we put in the right planning, we'll absolutely nail what ends up in what's called the Isaac Resources Excellence Precinct.
So that name did get finalised too. I've been away for a little bit, so I didn't know if it was all signed off yet.
And we're really excited about working with Mayor Baker and her team from Isaac Regional Council, and also the Queensland State Government, who have been the major funder of that project. So, and it's just so important that we get it right now, because when you look at things that are happening and look at Mount Isa at the moment, we're going to be, years ahead of the game in terms of transitioning these communities. And, if you think about it, what we're actually going to do, we're going to have our cake and eat it too. So we know that, particularly metallurgical coal is going to be around for 50, 70, 100 years. We're going to have that for our region, but we're also going to be developing all these new industries that will sit
that are
in the
going to be
region.
established.
And
because of it.
So what does that deliver? For me, that delivers sustainable communities, because you need families, you need schools, you need hospitals.
It's not about little mining towns dying out and stuff anymore.
It's about
that story is way over. Yeah,
and that's the part that I suppose I learned from being out in Western Queensland. When you see, you go over the Great Divide and head out, west, and a lot of the communities out there, they're dying, and some of them have died beyond the point of return.
Yeah.
So what we've got to do is...
That's sad, man. That's people's homes and lives and everything that they built, those communities and stuff too. That's...
Yeah. So I think, we've got a great opportunity in our region to really set the whole region up for the future. And I think that whether it's Whitsunday, whether it's Isaac or Mackay, we've all got very bright futures.
And we've all got a role to play in that too.
Definitely.
And especially, I think the more we band together, the stronger we're going to make it for the whole region.
Yeah. So that's our focus about stage 2 and 3. People have asked me about, what about, is there a stage 4 in the Whitsundays?
Where's 4 to 10? Where's that stuff at?
We've got enough balls in the air at the moment. But, you've
got enough to do?
To quote one of my directors, Suzanne Brown, she explains it really well. She says the RCOE is not a physical location, it's more of a movement. So I think if there's an opportunity for us where we can fit from a collaboration perspective in bringing people together, it works for the RCOE. And while we're geographically in Mackay and soon to be Isaac, there's nothing to say that our business model might not work in Tasmania or Karratha or...
It's connecting dots that aren't just about physical locations. It's really bringing things together, you know, that collaboration and ideas and stuff like that. It's much bigger than just the physical place that you go to. And I remember that was one of the things, like, I'm not sure, I don't think Suze was on the board when it first started out, but I remember having those conversations with the board back then as well, and a couple of others about it. You know, we had to, when we were writing the content and stuff, it was really making sure that it was not focused, like, yes, state-of-art facility, amazing, etc. like that, but the concept of RCOE was a much broader idea of connection and collaboration and how we communicated that. And it was, like I said, at the time, it was really quite nebulous. And, you know, like, I felt like I went on a journey to wrap my head around it and then be able to communicate that, which, you know, I felt like we really did. But then the fact that you go out there and champion that with people of all level of governments, all different backgrounds in industry, community groups, industry, research, all this kind of stuff, like that's, I think it's a big job that you've done, and now with the team and everything too. And I think that's what has brought it so quickly to these stages already, which I know they are fast track compared to what we were thinking. So it's just really exciting to see, Steve.
Thank you.
So I do like to have a wrap up tip. So again, just bringing it back to our audience, because that's literally why we have, I mean, while I find it really fun to just have chats, is about the people who are watching. So just wanted to see if you could pass on to the small business owner that's watching what a key, whether it's something we've already talked about or something different, a key business or marketing tip that you wish every small business owner knew.
I've got a good one, and it's something I've always sort of lived by, and especially when you're in small business, is while you may be a small business, there's nothing from you and your mindset treating your business like you are actually a big business. You know, and I think
that's an excellent point.
You know, because what you've actually got is you've got big businesses actually trying to prove that they're more nimble and they're like a small business, and you've got small business trying to prove that they're like a big business. But, you know, I can recount so many positive things that I did and have done over the years, because I've always tried to channel that. Don't think of myself as a one-man show at the RCOE or, you know, 20 odd people in the travel industry or whatever. Like, I used to think of myself as flight centre in the travel industry, and that's how I'd run my business. And same as at the RCOE, even when it was only me or maybe me and Tracy, I saw us as, you know, we were the number one
running it to the standard that you want to be known for, and no matter what size you are.
And then that gives you confidence. And, you know, like, and just as a quick example, I went to a mining, well, there was a World Mining Congress in Brisbane this year, and just from talking to people and having that mindset about who we are and what we are, and we're not just this little, you know, show in Mackay. I actually got to talk to this guy who then, when I realised where he was from, he's an advisor to the board of Tesla.
Oh, right.
So he was actually interested in our story and was going to go back and report to Tesla the work that we were doing at our facility in Mackay. So I kind of, that again just reiterated to me that you've got to have that confidence, and you've got to be aiming up to be the best that you can be, or the biggest business that you could be. Don't see yourself as this little minnow or this little, because, you know, we saw from COVID, the whole landscape's changed. You can have a business in a region like Mackay and you can be the number one in the world.
Exactly.
So, you know, I would say
opportunity abounds, man.
Yeah, don't narrow your thinking that you're just this little SME. Like, you know, treat your business like you are the number one player in your category,
and you will become it, though. Too.
And you'll become it.
If you don't act like it, how are you going to become it?
Yeah. So I think that's probably, you know, that's something that I've always, I've always thought about, and I've always tried to, you know, no matter what business I've been in, you know, always aim up to be as if you're the number one.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
I've known you for a long time, man, but I still just got so much out of this. I don't ever listen to my podcast back because I don't need to hear myself talking again, but this is definitely one I'm going to be listening to again. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And honestly, I value all of your, support and advice and so on in those early years. And, it's been great to work with you and still be working with you now. And I think we did a good job of, evolving and listening, and, we changed directions a few times around what we did. And
isn't that just business though?
Well, yeah, and I think it came to, we had a good relationship.
Yeah.
So, so thank you. Thanks to you for the opportunity.
No, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you guys got as much out of that as I did, and I will see you next time. Cheers. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Marketing Margaritas. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, ask if you can please share, subscribe, and leave a review to help us reach even more people who have a passion for marketing and the occasional margarita.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Marketing and Margaritas. Find more free marketing tips, tricks and laughs at rebelnation.com.au.